as you can expect, we're here to talk about the Payara Platform roadmap update. This is the last one of the year, so it's mostly going to be a recap following what we've accomplished and what we've got to look forward to. Steve Millidge is here to cover that, and Rudy's here as well to answer some questions. If you guys have any, please put them in the chat or the Q&A section, and I'll make sure they're highlighted and we can get to them. But thank you guys very much for joining us. And Steve, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, let me find the right Zoom window. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Millidge. I'm going to do the roadmap webinar. Just checking that you can see the right thing. Have you got that then, Jaden? Okay. Okay, thanks for attending this roadmap webinar. I'm Steve Millidge. I'm the founder of Payara. And today, what we're going to talk about is I'm basically going to recap the vision for Payara Platform. We tend to do this, once a year, and how we're positioning Payara, the company, and sort of our view of where our product set sits, because we have Payara Micro, we have Payara Server, and we have soon to come Payara Cloud. And then I will look at the 2021 recap. So the way we do product management cycle is calendar year. So we're coming to the end of the 2021 roadmap. Every January, we do a big roadmap webinar looking for the whole year ahead. So this year I wanted to cover what did we look at, promise, or suggest we might develop in 2021 and what's actually happened. So I think that's a useful thing to do. I then look forward. I shall look forward to the Q1 and Q2 2022. A lot of the work we'll be doing in the first half of next year is all around core standards. A lot of the work we've done this year is all around core standards, because as Jakarta and MicroProfile march forward, then we need to keep up. So I shall basically cover how we're approaching that in the next couple of quarters next year. And then again, you've heard a lot about this through the year, so I'm going to do a very quick update of where we are on Payara Cloud and when you can expect that to hit. So let's first go into Payara Platform vision. So in this section, I really wanted to cover, how I see Payara, how I see where it sits in the ecosystem of application servers, standards, and other aspects of the Java world. So first and foremost, the Payara team are committed to Jakarta EE. So Jakarta EE is the evolution of Java EE, and it's moved to the Eclipse Foundation, as everybody will know by now, and it is starting to move forward and deliver releases. We've obviously had Jakarta EE 8, which was the same as Java EE 8, and we've also had Jakarta EE 9, which moved it to the new namespace and moved to Java 11, and now we're getting close to the release of Jakarta EE 10, which is where innovation started again on Jakarta EE platform. So we want to position the Payara platform as to be first for Jakarta EE developers. So if you are a Jakarta EE developer, then we want you to choose Payara first. The reason we're committed to Jakarta EE is we're committed to actually the application server model. I know the application server model, many people will say, is outdated, but we did a webinar series, they're trying to debunk some of the myths about application servers, but essentially we are committed to the benefits of Jakarta EE model. The benefits really is that Jakarta EE defines a separation from your application and your runtime. And that separation is effectively done through deployment, whatever that means. So in the Jakarta EE model, you build your business logic and you don't have to worry about assembling a runtime. So we in Payara, our job is to assemble that runtime. So our Payara runtime covers many different things for you that you don't have to worry about. So we cover configuration, logging, security, integration with security providers, integration, with authentication, authorization, and those aspects through standard APIs. We do all the thread management, and give you standard APIs to manage threads and resources and concurrency. And we do messaging, database access, metrics, network, the whole, gamut of what any managed runtime has to do. Whether you're using another framework that doesn't claim to be an application server, or whether you're using Payara, what we do is we manage infrastructure for you, and you as an Jakarta developer can concentrate on building business logic. That is the beauty of the Jakarta model. And what you do is you program to Jakarta APIs and microprofile APIs. And then really how we see it is it's our job to make sure that your applications can then run on whatever compute infrastructure that you choose to run it on, and in whatever ecosystem environment that you wanted to run it on. Our goal is really to make that job easy for you. So all the revolution that's happened, probably more so than in server-side Java, the revolution has been in compute infrastructure over the past 3, 4, 5 years. We've gone from single, multi-core servers into cloud, into Kubernetes, into containers. So all of this really shouldn't concern you in our view as an application developer. What should concern you is using Jakarta and microprofile to build good applications for your users. And the managed runtime, which is Payara, our job is to abstract that compute infrastructure. So, but essentially, our view of the world is that you should build applications, and then Payara should build the infrastructure. Whether you're, as I said, deploying onto some Kubernetes infrastructure, or whether you're deploying on VMs on Amazon or Azure, or whether you're actually deploying onto physical hardware within a data center, you shouldn't really care. And it's our job to make sure you don't. So, you shouldn't really have to worry about Docker and YAML, pods and secrets and Kubernetes and those things. We should provide either the APIs to get into those through the standards bodies like Jakarta EE and microprofile, or we should handle that right through our platform so that you don't need to worry about it. And our goal really is to ensure that Jakarta developers can take applications, new applications they build, but also old applications that they have and maintain, and move them onto new infrastructure, new JVMs, new network topologies, and that's the goal of basically the Payara platform. So, as I said, so what we want to do and how we position our products in the Payara platform is we want to be able to allow you to scale your application right across different compute infrastructure and take advantage of different ecosystems that are out there. So from Payara Micro is positioned as a single node application server or runtime. It supports web profile, it supports microprofile, and it can run on anything from IoT edge devices right up to cloud, but it is designed, for a microservices type model. It's a single node that can do peer-to-peer clustering, but it's a single node application runtime for you. And then, move it. So we'd see that on the edge and containers and bare metal. And then when you move into, say, multi-server configurations where you want to have a single administration server with multiple application servers running your application distributed horizontally, then Payara Server moves into that direction. And Payara Server, again, it's our job in Payara Server platform to take that domain model that we have and then make that make sense across multiple machines, cross virtualization through Kubernetes and onto cloud platforms. And we've done some work this year to do that, and we've got more work to do there. And then finally, we have Payara Cloud, which is really putting a layer of runtime across the whole cloud compute infrastructure. So the idea of Payara Cloud is that the Kubernetes is the application server, or so the cloud environment is the application server, and you just deploy to that. So you're not configuring servers, you're not configuring managed servers, you're not configuring instances into pods and into Docker containers. But again, all of this is really unified so that you can take your application, and if you have a microservice, you could deploy it onto an edge server through Payara Micro, or you could deploy it into a complex cloud, auto-scaling cloud infrastructure using Payara Cloud, or you could configure a domain onto Kubernetes and that would work exactly the same way. So this is what we're trying to achieve in Payara. And the pillars to that really, as we see it, are standards is first. First and foremost, as we said, we're committed to Jakarta EE. The difference between Jakarta EE and other frameworks is that it's an industry standard. What that means is you don't have to use Payara. You could take your application and run it on WebLogic or WebSphere, or conversely, you could take those applications and move them to Payara, which is obviously what I prefer. But it's based on standards, and those standards are developing and move through the Eclipse Foundation, which is an independent organization, so it's not dominated by a single vendor. And I think that has advantages as a Jakarta developer. As I said, compute infrastructure agnostic covers what I've just discussed. Deep diagnostics. Again, one of the things we're trying to achieve for you is that as a developer, you deploy to manage runtime. One of the great advantages of a managed runtime is that we know what your application is doing, we know what the components are, and therefore we should be able to give you insights into problems that are occurring, or any production issues or things like that. And this is an area that we, again, want to develop more significantly as we build out moving into next year, but we've also built Payara Insight and many features that we added to Payara around tracing and health checks, etc. Again, most of that is one of the pillars of our platform and is an area we will continually develop. The other one is developer experience. We've done a lot of work to unify IDE plugins to make sure that the experience of developing with Payara is good for you as a developer. We want to make it faster. We want turnaround times to be faster. We've looked at hot reload of applications with IDE integration. So again, an area that is key to our success and yours. And then ecosystem. One of the key bits of being able to make you as a developer to use many different infrastructures is us providing components that integrate with those. So whether it's plugins to trace into Kubernetes, or to retrieve config from Kubernetes, or whether it is OAuth providers or OpenID providers, so you can integrate into security platforms. We're continually working on this, and we need to develop more. And then finally, stability. The key purpose of developing Payara is for you to build production applications. And to have those production applications large scale running in production environments, and that requires stability as well as innovation and all the other things. So the way we split the platform is that we have a core, which we see as the sort of single JVM, if you like, that's running in microprofile or EE application. And then we have a lot of other things around it that we have to do, which we call the platform. So you can always think of it in some ways as that the core is like a single instance of Payara server, or it's a single JVM running Payara Micro. It's effectively almost the same thing. And then we have a lot of certification around it. We need to support many databases, operating systems, JVMs. We need to plug into IDEs. We need to work into different config stores. And we need messaging security and lots of other things that the platform needs to give you as developer so that your application can live within the ecosystem. And again, that's one of our key missions. And then finally, on this section, I really wanted to just distinguish between enterprise and community, as sometimes there's a little bit of confusion. So both are open source platforms. Community is really designed for us so that we can drive innovation fast out there to you in the developer community. So, for example, JDK 17 support came out in community in the last release, and it will arrive in enterprise when we're happy that it can run production workloads straight away. So community is our way of driving innovation. So we can try new things, we can get the latest spec support, the latest JDK support. And one of the key pillars, as I mentioned previously, is stability. Enterprise is around stability. So enterprise has software lifecycle. We still support customers on Payara 4, for instance. So that's the key difference, really. Payara Platform Community is for development, as we see it. Payara Platform Enterprise, if you're serious about running Payara in production, then you should be on the enterprise subscription. That doesn't mean to say, Payara Platform Community quality is bad. It is there to drive innovation, and there to drive, as a developer, that you get the new shiny things faster than they would arrive in enterprise, as enterprise is there for production. So at the beginning of January last year, or February, I basically stood up and did a webinar around what our core timeline is. And this is what we said last year. So I just want to take through where we are on this. So this is our core timeline slide. So we kicked off in February 2021. A lot of the work, as you can see on here, this year has been around delivering standard support, which is essential so that you can keep up with the latest capabilities and the latest standards, because standards bodies are moving now. So there's been a lot of work to just maintain this timeline. So we actually hit all the things on here this year. So we delivered MicroProfile 4. We released Payara 6 Alpha 1, which is Jakarta 9 compatible, maybe a little later than that because Jakarta 9 came out a little later. We got MicroProfile 4.1. We also delivered JDK 17 in the last release. So just not far after it, it was released as an LTS. And I'll talk about going forward and later in the webinar. There's some core improvements that we're still working on. We haven't delivered all these this year. We have delivered some gRPC. We've done some logging improvements, and we've done more integrated tracing, monitoring, and plugins for tracing and notifiers, etc. There's some work we're still looking at, which has always been oriented around 6, which is how we support Jakarta 10, especially CDI Lite, and whether we need a new CDI implementation. And again, around servlet, whether we support the latest servlet specification in Payara 6 through the current Tomcat integration, which is embedded in Payara, or whether we do something different. So these areas are still under research and still under development. So they haven't arrived this year. What we did deliver, we've done is gRPC remoting this is out with some customers at the moment to get feedback, whether the approach is how they want it to work. But we have a solution for gRPC. And we've also noticed that Jakarta gRPC may kick off soon. And so we'll look at to align that. But we have an implementation and that's out with customers. So the reason we have to have an implementation of gRPC is basically we want anything you annotate or define as a server-side gRPC component is also CDI and EJB and can integrate with the rest of Jakarta EE. So we have a solution around this where you'd mark something as gRPC, and then we have Payara code that will take the gRPC client, API, and protocol and convert it and invoke your implementation. And if people want to see that, just sort of give us a shout and we can push that out. It's only with customers at the minute because they requested it and they're basically checking whether it does what they want it to do before we release it out into community. There's some areas that we said on the platform. If you remember, the platform is the bits around the core single JVM. So we talked about auto-scaling, Kubernetes operator, migration tooling, and upgrade tooling. So we did in the year deliver auto scaling in the first implementation. This is our vision for auto scaling. It's not all there as we're moving it out slowly, but we have auto scaling of deployment groups on SSH nodes so that you can scale them out. So you can take an instance and say you want multiple versions of this instance with a command, and that will scale that across SSH nodes. Similar to saying I want to go from 2 pods to 5 pods on say do Kubernetes. So that piece of work has been done. We're still doing work around, and this will go into 2022, around pushing that to different compute providers. Currently it works with SSH nodes. We need to go into Kubernetes and things like that. So that work was delivered in 2021, this year, and is still ongoing as we develop further. We shipped the Kubernetes operator. So what this enables you to do is to deploy and configure a Payara domain easily onto Kubernetes and do some management operations on that domain. So that is available in GitHub, and it was available to use now. So that was shipped within 2021. And then we've also shipped the upgrade tooling. So we have upgrade tooling for enterprise, which allows you to upgrade a domain from one version to the next version and revert back to previous versions. So this allows you to upgrade a local distribution of Payara. And this allows you to migrate from different enterprise versions. So the way in community, what we do with community is we don't guarantee backwards compatibility between different releases of community, but we do guarantee that any specific release of community is a high quality application runtime. We've also, as part of that, we delivered obviously Payara 6 Alpha 1. So Payara 6 will be the next big version, major version of Payara. And we support Jakarta 9.1 and it's Jakarta 9.1 compatible at the moment. So further work will be done to develop Payara 6. And that's the big key thing around what's happening in the next couple of quarters. So if we look forward to Q1 and Q2, really, as I said, so our product management lifecycle is that we work on calendar quarters. So we're still in the definition of what will happen later in 2022. But looking forward to Q1 and Q2, what we're really focused on at the moment is, again, the core standards. So as I said, we delivered all the key items on our roadmap against core standards for 2021. In 2022, there's a couple of major happenings. So first, Jakarta EE 10 should be released in Q1 2022. And Jakarta EE 10 has new specifications, new updates to things like JAX RS, or Jakarta REST as it's now called, Jakarta concurrency, Jakarta servlet. So there's a lot of new API updates. And I encourage you to go on the Jakarta live stream, which is not next week, the week after, Jakarta 1 live stream, and that will give you a lot more information about what updates are actually coming in Jakarta 10. So Jakarta 10 should drop in Q1 2022. And what we're aiming to have is a beta in community. As I said, community is where we are pushing the latest versions, latest specs first, and the latest specification support. We should have a beta in community, hopefully, at the same time as Jakarta 10 is released. That may, slip due to any software development does, but that is our current goal, is to have that support there when Jakarta 10 comes out. So Payara 6 beta will be that first drop. And then following in 2022, we'll be looking to give full support into full support into community, and also full support into enterprise for Jakarta EE 10. Now, Jakarta 10 is forcing obviously a major version upgrade to Payara 6 because Jakarta 10 is not backwardsly compatible to Jakarta 8, which is essentially what Payara 5 is as a runtime. So the reason why it's not backwardly compatible is the namespace change. So all the APIs obviously in Jakarta EE8, which Payara 5 is a Jakarta EE8 compatible implementation, and the Jakarta EE8 runtime runs on the JavaX namespace. So Jakarta E9 and beyond runs on the Jakarta namespace. So currently we have shipped already support for that in Payara 5. So if you have an application in the Jakarta E9 namespace and you drop it into Payara 5, it is essentially transformed back into an old Jakarta E8 application. So the namespace is changed to JavaX. So we can do that for 99% of it. We can't pass the TCK doing that for Jakarta E9 because parts of the TCK do string compares on class names, and obviously that would break if we transform it back to the old class name class package. So, but Payara 5, for all intents and purposes, can run Jakarta E9 applications, and anything that doesn't run we consider as a bug and we'll try and fix, unless you're literally looking up class names and checking them. So that's the approach for Payara 5. So Payara 5 fundamentally is a Jakarta E8 runtime. Payara 6 will be fundamentally a Jakarta E10 runtime. It will ship with Java 11 as a minimum. It'll obviously run on Java 17 as Payara 5 does. But what it will do is it'll do the other way around. So it will take a Jakarta E8 application and transform it in the new namespace to Jakarta E10. It's possible that there might be behavior changes in there if there's been spec changes. But we will try and mitigate some of those where possible. So that's why we're basically giving it a version, upping the version number from Payara 5 to Payara 6. So it's a major release essentially. So, and that's why it's because it's not backwardly compatible. So again, what we're trying to do is ship that first beta aligned with Jakarta E10 release, and then we will that should be Q1, and then we will ship that in full support for enterprise in Q2. And then I want to just quickly cover Payara Cloud. As I said, Payara Cloud is a completely new runtime for us. So again, it will be initially a Jakarta 8 runtime. When we support Jakarta 10, then we'll have to look at how we do that in cloud as well to offer Jakarta 10 applications. But the idea of Payara Cloud is it's a complete application runtime which supports deploy your application and it runs on top of a cloud infrastructure. In the first release, this will be Azure. And just like you would deploy through an administration console onto Payara server domain, then in Payara Cloud, you will just upload your application, hit deploy, and it'll be running on the cloud. And we manage all the provisioning of Jakarta E, we manage all the TLS certificates, we look at managing DNS, and it sits on top of Kubernetes, so we manage all the provisioning of that as well and management of that. So you don't have to do anything but deploy your application. Initially, it'll be focused on web profile applications and anything that can run under the covers on Payara Micro could be able to run on Payara Cloud. So as I said, what the idea is part of our vision really of being able to take you from, a fat jar or thin WAR running on an edge server right up to taking exactly the same WAR and deploying it onto a completely managed cloud infrastructure. So we do all the work for controlling and deploying and provisioning everything that's required to run on a cloud infrastructure on top of Kubernetes. So we've been talking about Payara Cloud a lot over the year. We are extremely close to going GA with Payara Cloud. So all the actual technical work is done. We have a version 1.0. So if you are interested in trying out applications, then we have a URL on the website where you can register interest to be one of the first people to get access to Payara Cloud. we will go, initially we are looking people to register interest, and then very soon next year, then we will release that to open, basically just straight sign up on the website, and then away you go. So Payara Cloud has been promised all year, and it is about to drop. So if you're interested in Payara Cloud, then please sign up, and we can get in touch and talk to you about what you need to do and how you can use Payara Cloud to deploy apps straight onto cloud infrastructure. So that's our roadmap. As I said, there'll be a bigger roadmap which go further out into the rest of the year around more details of what we're trying to achieve in some of the other areas other than standards. We're in the middle of building that roadmap now, but Q1, Q2, 2022, just to re-emphasize, will be super focused on delivering Jakarta E10 support and getting the first Payara 6 GA version 6.0 out into the community, and then out into enterprise customers, and making sure that that works for you. So thank you. Any questions, Jayden? Because I can't see them.
Hi, yes. They're just coming in now. In Payara Cloud, how would JDBC pools be handled and database interfaces be configured?
Okay. Rudy, do you want to take that, or shall I?
Yeah, I can take that one. So when you deploy a application that uses a connection pool, that can be a pool, so a GNDI name configured in the persistence XML or with the data source definition file annotation, sorry, then that will be detected during deployment, and we give you the opportunity to fill in all the details of your connection pool in one of the configuration screens. So username, password, JDBC URL, pool sizes, min, max, etc. All those things you can configure when Payara Cloud detects that you need a database connection.
Yeah, as a managed runtime, we can inspect applications and work out what requirements they have and surface that out to you to put in a specific configuration.
Okay, brilliant. Another question for the community edition. When will V5 stop getting security patches? So Payara 5, presumably. In
community?
Yeah.
Payara 5 in community will basically, when we switch the main branch over to 6, which will be after 6, well, at the point of 6 release, then community will march forward on Payara 6. So Payara 5 patches, if you like, will stop at that point through community. So then it will be enterprise where you'll get patches and security fixes for Payara 5. So Payara community essentially is a marching version. So whatever's the latest release is the latest release.
Okay, brilliant. Another question we have is what metrics and logs data for the apps will Payara Cloud suggest? Okay,
Rudy, you can go with that one.
Yep. I have to answer the Payara Cloud one, but no problems. Well, the logs are available. So the logs of the application itself is pushed to the logging solution at of the cloud provider. So there you can search them and you can export them. So that's one thing. And from metrics, for the moment, we are providing some basic metrics like CPU, memory, HTTP request counts, etc., as metrics that you can consult for the applications running on the platform.
Yeah, and we also support microprofile metrics. And okay, you can also, there's diagnostics as well, so you can get heap dumps and thread dumps as well from the Payara Cloud.
Yes, correct.
Well, And then one more from Carlos Manuel. Oh, here's two questions there. With the release of the core profile for Jakarta, is there going to be an even more lightweight runtime from Payara?
Interesting question. Okay, the answer is yes. The when will depend, all depends on core profile, how it develops, and when that releases and how fast that is after Jakarta E10. So, but from Payara perspective, we are totally committed to Jakarta EE. So when core profile comes out, then we'll be aiming to support it in a lightweight core profile compatible implementation. It's part of the reason why, as I say, we've been looking at CDI and CDI Lite and what implementation do we use for CDI. So we're still doing this sort of work in the engineering at the moment. So core profile is sort of evolving, but not there yet. But we will be there supporting it.
Okay, great. Carlos Sosa asks, how stable is JDK 17 support in the latest release of Payara?
Do you want to take it, Rudy?
Yeah, I can take that one. When we switched the release branch, at that point, we did all the tests that we were available for community at that time, and and all those applications and tests are running fine on JDK 17. In the meantime, we started with our extended test, and there we have already found a few smaller issues. So how stable is it? It is working, but it might be the case that for your specific situation, there is still an issue with the current community version. So if you find them, please report them on our GitHub page or on the Payara forum. I think Jane will drop the link to our new Payara forum. And then we can see if we have already covered it in our test. Probably it is, but it's always good to have feedback on potential issues with something new like JDK 17.
Yeah, and some of the test suites that come to us from outside haven't got the best JDK 17 support. So some of the issues, we haven't decided whether they're test suite issues or whether they are issues in Payara itself.
Okay. We've got a few more questions. Regarding the community edition, what is the current planned date, third quarter 2022, for V6 becoming the main branch, so Payara 6?
I don't have a firm date, really. I think it's when we ship V6. So that could be, like, say, Q3 2022 or potentially Q2 2022.
Okay. Ralph asks, we already migrated our Jakarta EE8 application to Jakarta EE9. Should we wait for Payara 6, or will Payara 5 already be the right choice?
Well, my current view, I don't know if Rudy has a different one, but my view is if it's running fine on Payara 5, then that is expected. That's what we want to happen, is that you can take your Jakarta E9 application and run it on Payara 5. So if it's running fine, I would ship it on Payara 5. There's no reason not to at this point if you're passing all your application tests.
Yes, it should work. So every Jakarta E9 application should work on our current community version of Payara 5 already.
Great. Miguel asks, is that Payara Cloud offering a database service, or we had to use our on-premise or another cloud provider's database services? I'm thinking about latency.
The Payara Cloud itself does not offer a database service. So if you are in need of a database service, then we propose that you are also hosting a database service, and currently on the Azure platform, depending on the region that you have selected, because we support several regions within Payara Cloud. And then that latency should not be an issue if your database is running on the same region as our Payara Cloud offering. But the answer is so no, we don't offer a database service ourselves.
Okay. Is there going to be interfacing of any sort with Spring Boot 4, etc., for those on Spring Boot? Question mark.
Nothing is in the current plans. I'd be interested to know what interfacing is required or would be desired. So
yes,
if people want to put, put something on the forum or something like that, then we can take a look, because we know people run Spring Boot on Payara, or Spring Boot applications or Spring applications, but we don't really get a lot of requests for anything specific for us to support, if you sense, other than running the application. So always interested in ideas of how we could support it better, if there's something that you're hitting.
Okay. Yes, so SP, I would say head to the forum and get a discussion going there. Rudy has put the forum link in the chat, and we can see there might be other people who are thinking the same thing. Carlos asks, I understand that you advise the usage of Azul JDK with Payara. How does it impact the server behavior? Let's say comparing to others like Amazon Corretto or Eclipse Tamarin, are there some specific advantages?
Okay. Oh, it's not that we recommend Azul with Payara. It's that basically, if you're an enterprise customer, you get support for Zulu with Payara enterprise subscription. So it's not that we recommend, for community, that you have to run it on Zulu, but in enterprise you get a Zulu enterprise subscription. So it's part of your support, so you can raise tickets on the JVM. It shouldn't behave any different because Zulu is an open JDK build. So that's the one we're using. We're not using their other product. It's the open JDK build that we use. So it shouldn't behave any different to any other open JDK based runtime like Corretto or something like that. So we support, if you go on the website, there's many of them that we support. So we're not aware of any major differences. Occasionally you'll get TLS differences or certificate differences or things like that. But again, an enterprise customer gets support on Zulu. That's why you'll see it a lot.
Yeah, the Azul Zulu is now called Azul Platform Core, but that's just a marketing thing. But yes, some of the things are added on top of the OpenJDK. So for a long time, there was, for instance, additional HTTP2 support on the JDK 8, which was not possible on the standard ones. But in general, it is as Steve mentioned, it is a compatible OpenJDK implementation, so there should no differences in server behavior.
Sorry, I was on mute. What is the best version of Tomcat to run coexisting with Payara 5?
Depends how you coexist, I suppose. That's a very open question. I don't think there is one. If you're just making REST calls or something, I don't think it make any difference. I don't know how else you would integrate with Payara. So
yeah, it is not that Payara runs on top of a standalone separate Tomcat. It is embedded one. So indeed, not sure what that coexists means in the question.
Okay, well, hopefully they'll add a bit more information. Doug asks, we've just started tapping into using instances, deployment groups, and data grid. We're using the online documentation for a resource, but sometimes have other questions. Is the forum the best place to ask these type of questions?
If you are on community, then the forum is the best place to ask those questions. So the way we see it is that GitHub issues are for raising bugs or enhancement requests, and the forum is the place to ask questions on usage and how do you do things, and or if you've got ideas for enhancement requests and you want them more discussion. So that you should get community support out there, and the community helps each other around how to use clustering, deployment groups, those sort of things.
Okay. You mentioned that you think about a new CDI implementation. Would that mean that Weld is going to be replaced? And if so, what are the alternatives you consider?
I think it's probably, it doesn't mean to say that Weld is going to be replaced. It doesn't mean to say that we will ship Weld. So in the Payara core profile product. So we are currently evaluating and deciding our approach on supporting CDI Lite. There's a number of options at the minute. I don't know if you want to say anything more, Rudy, or not.
Yeah, that question about what we are going to do with that new CDI implementation is also based because we have more or less two CDI implementations. Well, not fully implementations, of course, but we have HK2 and we have Weld. So we are looking at options to reduce that overhead, but there are a few constraints also implementation-wise. So it is a part that we are researching, but as mentioned, we have not yet decided. And also in the light of Jakarta E10 core product, we are still evaluating several options.
Okay, great. I think that is all the questions we've currently had. If any more questions come to you, feel free to put them on the forum or send us a message through socials or any other channels. We can always get in touch via the website as well. And we'll put a few of those links in the chat. But thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone, for your time.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.